She left her wedding ring on top of a greasy, half-eaten pepperoni pizza. That was the last thing I saw before the door slammed shut. Not a note, not a dramatic speech. Just her ring, glinting next to a pile of crusts, and a leftover ranch cup slowly leaking onto a Netflix envelope we never returned. And you know what I did? I sat down and ate the last slice. Not because I was hungry, not because I didn't care, but because after 3 years of being emotionally starved, that slice of pizza had more warmth than she'd given me in months. The silence in the apartment was thick, not peaceful, suffocating, like the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting to see if I'd finally break. I didn't. I opened the window, lit a cinnamon candle she always hated, and blasted a playlist I made 2 years ago but was never allowed to play when she was home. I swear to God, I even danced. For exactly 45 seconds, in my socks, holding a lukewarm slice of pizza like a trophy. Then the tears came. Not the big, loud ones. The silent ones that slip out before you even realize you're crying. The kind that sting more because there's no one there to see them or care. Later that night, I opened her laptop. She never changed her passwords. I wasn't looking for anything. I just wanted to delete my saved login from Netflix. But the first tab was open. Airbnb confirmation, 3 nights, oceanfront condo. Booked 2 weeks ago. For 2 guests. And just like that, the fog in my brain cleared. The "I'm done with this marriage" line from earlier in the day made sense. She wasn't done with me. She had already replaced me. So the next morning, I made a pot of coffee, opened a fresh spreadsheet, and started listing every bill she had never paid, every chore I always did, every birthday I spent alone. And under that, I added one final line. Let's see how much you miss me when I'm not the one holding your life together. I didn't block her. I didn't beg. I disappeared so quietly it scared her. But what she didn't know was that someone else, someone completely unexpected, would soon be sitting where she once sat, sipping coffee from her favorite mug. And when she showed up at my door exactly 31 days later, her smile evaporated the moment she saw who answered it. I knew she'd come back. Not because I believed she loved me, but because people like her always come back when the ground starts shaking beneath their perfect little fantasy. The kind of woman who burns the house down, then circles back to ask if the ashes still miss her. It was exactly 31 days later. I remember because I had circled the date on my calendar in red Sharpie like it was some kind of sick anniversary. And right on cue, at 7:42 p.m., I heard the rattle of the front door. She still had her copy of the key. I hadn't changed the lock. I wanted her to try it. And when I heard the sharp clink and then the pause, the one that always came before she twisted the knob, I stood behind the wall in the hallway, silent, waiting. She turned it. Once. Twice. Nothing. I could practically feel the confusion radiating off her body. Then the knock came. 3 sharp taps. Then a pause. Then one more, softer. That was always her rhythm. She probably thought I'd open the door and greet her with a bitter smile or some half-hearted, "I told you so." But I didn't answer. Instead, she answered, from the kitchen. A new voice. A woman's voice. Light, calm, unfamiliar. "Curtis, do you want me to get that?" Her name is Maribel. And no, she's not my rebound. She's not a model or some flashy revenge fling from a dating app. She's the barista from the gas station 2 blocks down. The one who remembered my order even when I couldn't remember what day it was. The one who asked how I was doing even when I looked like a discarded sock. The one who, by sheer coincidence, also got divorced last year after catching her husband texting her sister. When she stepped into the hallway that night, wiping her hands on a dish towel and humming some Fleetwood Mac tune, she didn't even realize someone was on the other side of the door, until she looked through the peephole. She turned to me and said, "There's a woman out there. Blonde. Holding a suitcase. She looks wet and pissed off." I nodded. Let her stand there a minute. The second knock came. Louder. Angrier. "Curtis, I know you're in there." There it was. The voice I used to wake up to. Now it sounded like nails on a chalkboard dipped in guilt. I walked over slowly. Calm. Like I was approaching an exhibit at a museum I'd already seen before. When I opened the door, her mascara was running. Her hair was flat from the rain. And that smile, the one she weaponized so many times, was gone. "Who the hell is she?" she asked, eyes darting behind me. I didn't answer. I just smiled and said, "The woman who didn't need to lie to feel loved." And then I closed the door in her face. She screamed something. I didn't hear the words. I didn't need to. I had heard all her lines before. But as I stood there, heartbeat finally slowing, I realized something I hadn't expected. I didn't feel victorious. I felt nothing. And that terrified me more than anything. Because if she didn't matter anymore, if the pain wasn't there, then what the hell had I been holding on to all these years? She didn't leave the driveway. I watched from the upstairs window as she stood by her car in the rain for nearly 20 minutes, not moving, not calling, just staring at the front door like it had betrayed her too. Eventually, she leaned against the driver's side, lit a cigarette, even though she used to lecture me about quitting, and just stood there like some sad statue of regret. Maribel came upstairs and handed me a towel, not to dry off, but because my hands were sweating. I hadn't even noticed. She didn't ask questions. She just looked at me and said, "Want me to leave?" I shook my head. No, that's exactly what she wants. Because I knew my ex. Well, Rachel wasn't the type to walk away without leaving claw marks. She liked to be the one with the final word, the exit line, the scene. And I'd taken that from her. Worse, I replaced her with someone quiet, soft-spoken, and kind. Someone who didn't scream or gaslight or throw my phone across the room during arguments. That must have eaten her alive. The next morning, I found her perfume in the mailbox. Her signature bottle. Shattered. There was no note. Just glass, that sickly vanilla scent, and a petty little message without words. I still have access to your world, whether you like it or not. I didn't tell Maribel. There was no point. She was already tiptoeing around the ghost of a woman she never met. She started locking the bathroom door even when I wasn't home. Started checking over her shoulder walking to her car. Not because I was dangerous, but because the shadow of my past was turning her into collateral damage. A week passed. Then the real escalation began. A friend from work, Carl, who never liked Rachel, pulled me aside in the break room with a weird look on his face. He asked if everything was okay at home. I said, yeah, mostly. He hesitated, then showed me his phone. It was a text from an unknown number. Be careful around Curtis. He's not who he says he is. Ask his ex-wife. There was no signature, no details. Just poison, poured into people's ears like we were back in high school. Turns out, she'd messaged 3 of my coworkers with similar nonsense. She even emailed my manager a vague message about concerns regarding Curtis's stability. And that was when I realized something ugly. She didn't want me back. She just didn't want to be replaced. Her ego couldn't stomach the idea that I had moved on. Not dramatically, not vindicatively, but peacefully. That I found something close to happiness with someone else. I confronted her. Texted one sentence. This isn't a movie, Rachel. No one's clapping for you anymore. She didn't reply. But 2 hours later, I got a call from my mom. My mom, who lives 2 states away. Apparently, Rachel had messaged her too. Claimed she was worried about my mental health. And suggested she check in on me before something irreversible happened. And that was the moment the line snapped. This wasn't just about jealousy anymore. It was war. And she was willing to weaponize anything to feel like she still mattered. Even if it meant painting me as broken to the people who loved me most. It happened on a Wednesday. Middle of the week, right after I finished reorganizing the shed. Something I hadn't done in 4 years because Rachel used to call it a waste of time. I was halfway through labeling old boxes of extension cords when I heard the knock. Not a soft one. A commanding, professional one. That 2-knuckle tap that says we're not selling cookies. I opened the door and there they were. 2 officers, 1 male, 1 female, standing on my porch with rain still glistening off their shoulders. I remember immediately scanning the driveway to make sure Maribel's car wasn't there. It wasn't. Thank God. The woman spoke first. Are you Curtis Hammond? I nodded, suddenly aware that my palms were dusty and I smelled like gasoline and spider webs. We received a call from someone expressing concern about a domestic disturbance at this address, she said, eyes cool and practiced. Mind if we step in for a moment? I laughed, out of pure nerves. You've got to be kidding. They weren't. They stepped inside. Professional, courteous, almost bored. As if they already suspected this was a waste of their time, but had to follow through. They asked me a series of calm, standardized questions. Had there been yelling? Any recent arguments? Anyone else living in the home? Any prior incidents involving violence? No, 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 and absolutely not. The male officer looked around, scanning the living room like he expected to see a hole in the drywall or shattered glass on the floor. What he saw instead was a pot of coffee brewing, my laptop open to a spreadsheet, and a half-eaten blueberry muffin on the counter. Before they left, the woman officer asked, "Do you know anyone who might have made this call?" And I answered with 2 words, "My ex." She nodded, not surprised. We get that a lot. Once they left, I sat down on the couch and just stared at the wall. I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared. I was hollow, like someone had scooped out the inside of my chest and left me running on fumes. This wasn't heartbreak anymore. This was harassment. And for the first time in this whole twisted mess, I realized something that changed how I looked at everything. Rachel wasn't just bitter. She was dangerous. Because unlike other people, she didn't need logic to feel justified. She just needed to feel wronged. And then anything she did after that became fair game in her mind. Maribel came over that night and found me sitting in the dark, nursing a glass of water like it was scotch. I told her everything. About the cops, the messages, my mom, the shattered perfume bottle. Her eyes didn't widen. She didn't gasp. She just sat down next to me, took my hand, and said, "You need to stop playing defense." She was right. So the next morning, I did something Rachel never saw coming. I printed out every text, every screenshot, every call log. I drafted a letter, a real one, with dates, times, details. I walked it all down to the local station and filed a formal report. Not to press charges, not yet, but to get it on record. To make it real. To build a timeline. To draw a line in the sand and finally say, enough. I didn't tell her I did it. I wanted her to keep going. To dig her hole deeper. And oh, she did. Because a few days later, something appeared on social media. Something small, but public. Just enough to set everything on fire. A picture of me and Maribel. Taken from behind. At the farmer's market. I never even noticed anyone near us. But there it was, blurry, distant, but unmistakable. Captioned, "Some people move on fast." I guess pretending doesn't take much effort. Rachel had finally gone public. And in doing so, she gave me exactly what I needed to end this once and for all. I didn't plan on hurting her. Not originally. That wasn't the point. This wasn't about revenge, at least not at first. It was about reclaiming something. Dignity, maybe. Peace. The right to walk into my own house without checking the shadows. But once she took things public, once she made me into a villain in the eyes of people who only knew half the story, something inside me shifted. And I'll admit it. I started thinking differently. See, Rachel forgot something important. While she was focused on throwing punches online, I was still quietly connected to a world she never really paid attention to, the practical side of our marriage. The boring stuff. The tax returns, the storage accounts, the shared cloud backup that she never unlinked from after leaving. And that's where I found it. In a forgotten shared folder titled Receipts and Docs, 2022, there was a file with her name on it, but not created by her. PDF format. Scanned. Sloppy edges. It was a hotel invoice. 3 nights. Booked under her email. Paid with his credit card. Room for 2. Dated exactly 1 week before she told me she was done with this marriage. She must have scanned it for expense tracking or maybe to send it to him, I don't know. But she forgot to remove it. Left it in plain sight like a loaded gun she didn't know was still in the house. And just like that, I had proof. Not assumptions. Not suspicion. Cold, time-stamped, indisputable evidence. I didn't even get angry. I just stared at it for a long time. At the digital receipt. The room service charges. The spa add-ons. The champagne. The note in this special occasion field. Surprise anniversary weekend. Please add roses. Anniversary. While we were still married. That's what broke me. Not the lie. Not the affair. But the fact that she tried to create something sacred with someone else, while I was home folding her laundry and Googling recipes for her birthday dinner. I didn't send it to her. Not yet. That would have been too easy. Instead, I printed it. Neatly. 1 copy. Slipped it into an envelope and mailed it to her mother. Yeah, I know. Petty? Maybe. But Rachel's mom was old school. Church choir, scripture magnets on the fridge. Always pretended to like me, but clearly saw me as too soft for her daughter. She once told Rachel, right in front of me, that men were supposed to lead, not follow. Well, I led. A few days passed. Then the call started. Not from Rachel. From her mother. 6 missed calls. 2 voicemails. 1 long, awkward, uncomfortable message telling me she was deeply sorry to hear what I'd gone through. and that Rachel hasn't been thinking clearly these days. She said I was always welcome to talk if I needed anything. I didn't call back, but it was the first time I felt like maybe, just maybe, the mask was starting to slip from Rachel's face, and not just for me. Later that week, Maribel and I went out to a quiet bar. Somewhere low-key out of town. Just a normal night. Laughter, drinks, soft music. We weren't hiding, just keeping our peace protected. But while I was at the bar ordering a second round, a woman approached our table. Mid-30s. Tight smile. Nervous fingers. "Are you Curtis?" she asked. I nodded. Carefully. "I'm sorry if this is weird," she said, voice low. "I don't know you, but I think I'm dating your ex-wife's ex." I blinked. She introduced herself. Her name was Kara, and apparently, she had been seeing Brent, Rachel's guy, for the past 2 months. He told her he was finally free from a toxic relationship and that his ex had destroyed his sense of self-worth. Sound familiar? I asked her how she found me. She said Rachel had mentioned my name in passing during a rant, and when Brent slipped up and said something about an ex-husband trying to ruin things, she got curious and searched me, found the photo Rachel posted, found the tags, the mutuals, and followed the thread back to me. "You don't seem like the monster he described," she said, looking genuinely embarrassed. "And Rachel doesn't seem like the victim she plays." I didn't know what to say. She left her number, said she wasn't sure what to do yet, but wanted me to know. "You're not crazy." As she walked away, Maribel looked at me and said one thing. "You don't have to fight dirty. They'll bury themselves." And suddenly, I realized she was right. But I also knew Rachel wasn't done. No, she was just beginning her final move, and it would hit me where it actually hurt. I had taken precautions, changed the locks, switched banks, updated passwords, even moved my doctor's office file under a pseudonym just in case she got ideas. I thought I had severed every possible connection, but I forgot one. I forgot about Emma. Emma is my niece. She's 12, smart, too empathetic for her age, and the only person who ever made Rachel feel maternal. Even though Rachel once told me, bluntly, "I don't want to raise anything that whines." Emma would come over once a month for movie nights, and when things were still good, Rachel used to braid her hair and paint her nails like they were best friends. But after the separation, I kept my distance. Didn't want to drag Emma into adult trash fire territory. Didn't want her parents, my sister and brother-in-law, caught in the crosshairs. Rachel didn't share that concern. It started with a text to Emma from an unknown number. Just a simple, "Hey sweet pea, it's Aunt Rachel. I miss you so much. Are you doing okay?" That alone was enough to make my blood run cold. Because Rachel didn't just miss people. She used them. And I knew. This wasn't about Emma. This was about me. About tugging on one last string and hoping something unraveled. And it worked. Because Emma replied. Of course she did. She's 12. She doesn't understand war by proxy yet. Next came the photos. Rachel sent Emma a picture of my old guitar, the one I gave to Rachel when we first started dating. It had sat in our spare room for years, gathering dust. I hadn't asked for it back because I assumed she'd thrown it out. The caption? "Curtis forgot this too, just like he forgot everything else." Emma showed the message to her mom. Her mom showed it to me. And just like that, the entire bubble I'd built, the peace, the distance, the control, cracked. I wasn't angry. I was ashamed. Ashamed that someone so toxic had once been considered family. Ashamed that a 12-year-old was now being pulled into emotional blackmail because her uncle didn't want to sleep with a liar anymore. Maribel found me that night sitting on the porch, staring at my phone, holding the screenshot in my hand like it was a court summons. I told her what happened. Every detail, every message, every horrible possibility it opened up. She didn't flinch, just sat next to me, her knees pulled up to her chest. "She's spiraling," she said quietly. "You've already won." But that didn't comfort me, because it didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving. Like crawling out of a burning house only to realize your clothes still smell like smoke and your lungs might never be the same. That night, I made a final decision. I blocked Rachel on every platform. I contacted her mother and told her, politely, firmly, to keep her daughter away from my family or I'd take legal steps. I spoke with my sister and explained what was happening, with full transparency. And most importantly, I messaged Emma. Carefully, gently. I told her that sometimes adults make bad choices and that I still love her very much. But some people don't belong in our lives anymore, even if they used to braid our hair and make us laugh. It broke me to hit send, but it would have broken me more to let Rachel keep digging her claws in where they didn't belong. I expected silence after that. But 2 days later, I got a message I never saw coming. Not from Rachel, from Brent, her affair partner. It was short, cold, blunt. You should talk to her. She's not okay. I don't know what she told you, but she's saying some scary stuff now. And just like that, the tone of this story shifted again. Because for the first time, Rachel wasn't playing puppet master. She was slipping. And when someone like her starts falling, they don't go quietly. They take hostages. Brent's message sat on my screen like a loaded gun. I read it 3 times before I even blinked. He wasn't asking for forgiveness or warning me to back off. It was the kind of message a man sends when he's scared, not of losing a relationship, but of what a person might do next. For days I had built Rachel up in my head as this puppet master, the architect of my misery, always 10 steps ahead. Now, for the first time, someone on the inside was telling me she was unraveling. At first, I wanted to ignore it. Part of me whispered, "This isn't your problem anymore." She made her bed, let her lie in it. But another part, the part that still remembered who she was before all of this, wouldn't stay quiet. I could still see her at 25, barefoot in our first apartment, eating cereal out of the box and laughing at nothing. There was still a ghost of that woman somewhere under all the venom, and for reasons I couldn't fully explain, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was about to do something that couldn't be undone. I replied to Brent with one line, "Where is she?" He sent an address. A motel just outside town, the kind of place with flickering neon signs and curtains that never really close. I stared at it for a long time, my stomach in knots. Maribel walked into the room, saw the look on my face, and didn't even ask. She just said, "Go. I'll be here when you get back." No jealousy, no fear, just quiet support. I hated how much I needed it. The drive out there was like driving into an old nightmare. The highway was wet and empty, streetlights casting long streaks across the windshield. I kept thinking about the cops, the perfume bottle, Emma's messages. Every single thing she'd done to break me. And yet here I was, heading back into her orbit like some idiot moth to a flame. I kept telling myself I wasn't going to save her. I was just going to make sure she didn't drag someone else down with her. When I pulled into the lot, Brent was waiting outside. He looked nothing like the smug photos I'd seen on Facebook. He looked haggard, eyes ringed with red, hands stuffed in his hoodie pockets. He walked up to my car and leaned in through the window. "She locked herself in," he said quietly. "She's been drinking. Keeps saying she has nothing left. She thinks you're with someone new." I told her to let it go, but he broke off, shaking his head. "She's not hearing me anymore." I stepped out of the car. The rain was misting now, cool on my face. For a second, I thought about just turning around, driving home, letting the motel staff handle it. But then I pictured Emma and Maribel and even Rachel's mother. How all of them would look at me if they knew I had the chance to stop something and didn't. I knocked on the door. No answer. Knocked again, harder. "Rachel," I said, my voice low but firm. "It's me. Open the door." Still nothing. From inside came the faint sound of a bottle tipping over, a muffled sob. Brent stood behind me, useless, wringing his hands. I tried the knob. Locked. I pressed my forehead to the door and spoke softly, the way you do to a scared animal. "I'm not here to fight. I'm not here to gloat. I'm just here to make sure you're okay." Silence. Then a shaky voice from the other side. "Why do you care? You already replaced me." I closed my eyes. "Because once, you were the only person I wanted in the world. And I don't want that person to disappear like this." The lock clicked. Slowly, the door opened a crack. She looked nothing like the Rachel I remembered. Hair a mess, eyes bloodshot, one hand clutching the doorframe like she might fall over. And for the first time in months, there was no anger in her face. Only fear. "You're really here," she whispered. "I'm really here," I said. "But this ends tonight, Rachel. One way or another." Behind me, Brent shifted his weight, like he'd just realized this wasn't the kind of scene he'd signed up for. Inside, the motel smelled like spilled wine and stale perfume. I could feel the storm building, not outside, but in that tiny, suffocating room. I didn't know it then, but what she would say next would tear open everything I thought I knew about why she left, why she lashed out, and who the real villain in this story actually was. She didn't speak right away. Rachel stood there in the doorway, barely holding herself up, looking at me like I was a stranger who somehow knew all her secrets. And in that moment, I realized something I didn't expect. She wasn't dangerous anymore. Not to me. Not to Maribel. Not to herself. She was just empty. Not in a dramatic, theatrical way. Not as a manipulation. Just truthfully, heartbreakingly empty. She sat down on the edge of the motel bed, bottle still in her hand. Brent hovered behind me like a man hoping to disappear, and when I looked back at him, I nodded toward the door. Give us a minute. To my surprise, he left without argument. Rachel stared at the carpet and finally spoke. You know what I hate the most? Her voice was raspy, like she hadn't used it in days. I thought leaving you would make me feel powerful. I thought, if I just stepped out of the life we built, I'd find this version of me that was waiting to be free. She laughed, short and bitter. Instead, I found silence. And I filled it with the wrong people. Wrong choices. Noise. I said nothing. I let her unravel. I didn't leave you because I didn't love you, she whispered. I left you because I didn't love myself. And when I saw you find someone new, someone gentle, it destroyed the lie I'd been telling myself. That you were the problem. There was a long pause. I'm sorry, she finally said. I didn't say it's okay. Because it wasn't. Not really. But I nodded. That was enough. I stood there for another few minutes. Not as her ex. Not as her enemy. Just someone who used to know her well. I told her she needed to check herself into a clinic or go stay with her mom. That I'd already documented everything. And if she ever messaged Maribel or my niece again, I'd file an order without hesitation. She nodded like a guilty child. As I turned to leave, she said one last thing. Curtis, don't let me be the ghost in your new life. I looked back and said the only thing I knew she needed to hear. You already aren't. And then I walked out, for the last time. That was 6 months ago. Rachel did go stay with her mother. From what I hear, she started therapy, got sober, and hasn't posted anything since. I still get the occasional text from her mom, mostly short updates. I don't reply often, but I read them. And somewhere inside me, I hope she really means to stay gone this time, in the right way. As for Brent, he vanished. I suspect he saw too much of himself in her, and didn't like the reflection. But more importantly, Maribel stayed. She never asked me to be perfect. Never demanded I move on faster than I could. She gave me space, but not distance. She didn't fix me. She just made sure I had the tools to fix myself. A month ago, she moved in. Last week, we repainted the spare room. The one that used to be filled with old memories and silence. Now it's full of bookshelves, plants, and sunlight. No ghosts left. And tonight, as I write this, she's sitting across from me in a hoodie 2 sizes too big, humming to herself while reading a book I recommended. The windows are open. The air smells like cinnamon. And for the first time in years, the peace is real. I survived the storm. But I didn't just survive it. I rebuilt after it, better, wiser, whole. And if you're reading this, if you're in the middle of your own collapse, your own heartbreak, your own kitchen table confession, let me tell you something that no one told me when I needed it most. The end of something awful is the beginning of something real. And sometimes, letting someone go is the only way you get your life back.